Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to the December 5th, 2023 meeting of the Smithfield Town Council. I'd like to call to order. And at the present time, if you would please stand and join us with the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd like to ask Mr. Jeff Brooks to lead us, please.
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you again. Welcome to the Smithfield Town Council. Mr. Riddick, I think we do have a quorum. We have two members that are attending remotely within the parameters of the ordinance that we have. You want to elaborate on that for me, please?
Yes, pursuant to the policy that you've adopted, they are permitted to do so because they have advised you ahead of time. Once they come on the line, if they're on the line, they have to identify who they are, where they are, and that they are participating remotely in accordance with our policy.
Ms. Roundtree.
Yes, sir.
You advised location?
This is
Yep, go ahead.
Right. This is Renee Roundtree. I'm in San Antonio, Texas, on a work trip.
Thank you, man. Mr. Pack?
Yeah, this is Randy Pack. I am in Nashville, Tennessee, attending a conference.
Thank you. Satisfied?
It does.
Thank you, Mr. Riddick. Is there any reason for a closed session tonight that you're aware of?
I don't think so, no.
Thank you. The next is the informational section. Mr. Stallings?
Yes, sir. Included in your packet is the monthly activity reports. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Any questions of council for Mr. Stallings? How about the upcoming meetings and activities? Anyone have any questions as far as that or anything out of the ordinary there, Mr. Stallings, that we need to know about?
No, sir. The one attention item is December 19th at 5 o'clock is the special call town council meeting, which will be when we hear the recommendations from the nominating committee as far as the filling of the two vacancies we'll have on council, to just make sure that's on everybody's calendar.
Thank you. Any questions, members of council? Thank you. Next is public comments. The first one was A, recognition of Smithfield Packers Youth Football 2023 Super Bowl champions. I think that Leslie and I had just miscommunication. They're actually playing, I think, in the Super Bowl as we speak right now down in Florida. And we look forward to having them at the January meeting when they come back to recognize them. So we're looking forward to that. The next is the Cypress Creek Bridge Rehabilitation Project, up from VDOT representative, and that would be Mr. Gautam Ramesh. Would you come forward, sir, please? Good to have you with us tonight. And I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Yes, it is.
Good. Please come forward. Thank you for being with us here tonight. State your name and who you represent, please.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Gautam Ramesh, representing VDOT, Hampton Roads District. I'm here to talk about Cypress Creek project. To give a brief overview, so Cypress Creek project, I think you're all familiar. It's a bridge rehab job. We're doing a lot of repairs on top and underside of the deck and doing some work on pile jackets. So the work is supposed to start January. It was supposed to start December, but it got pushed out to January of 2024. But a big change, if you go to the next slide, is I know there was a lot of PR for like 3 years on this project, and always it has been alternating traffic based on working with the town and the EMS folks. Now we're going to go westbound directional traffic into the town, and eastbound will be detoured. So that's the big change, and VDOT is working on PR release as well, which will come out sometime this week. So we're going to do extensive PRs to make sure public knows what they have to expect. That's a huge change. So timeline-wise, work will start January of next year, and then the traffic shift going to the other direction will happen end of next year, and then the project will be done fall of 2025, August plus or minus of 2025. That's pretty much the overview. Any questions, concerns?
Any questions by members of council from Mr. Ramesh? Well, on behalf of the council, we would really like to thank both VDOT and the Secretary of Transportation for facilitating the delay for us so that we could get through the Christmas time and everything as far as downtown and traffic is concerned. So thank y'all very much for being amenable to that, and we greatly appreciate it. And I understand you will be here giving us quarterly reports, quarterly updates as well?
Yes, that's true. We are planning to have stakeholder meeting and try to keep you all updated as much as possible, yep.
Okay.
And any issues, like, we are willing to work with you as usual and try to get the best for the town here.
Yeah, well, thank you. And if anything comes up that would be a surprise to us, we collectively really don't like surprises, so don't worry about giving us more information than we need, so we'd appreciate it.
We'll do, no problem at all today.
Any other questions for the gentleman? Thank you so very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Yes. Next item on the agenda is something we have all been waiting for, not in a good kind of way, but I know he's been waiting for it, and that's the briefing by Isle of Wight Board of Supervisor Dick Grice, District 1. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he will be glad to tell us probably that this is his last one. Then he gets to come back and he can aggravate us anytime he wants. But anyway, Dick, good to have you here, sir.
Thank you, sir. And good evening. I'm Dick Grice, the Smithfield District Representative for the County Board of Supervisors, reporting to you for the last time. Since I will be officially retiring on December the 31st, my replacement will not have her first meeting until January the 4th, but your meeting is on January the 2nd. So consequently, I will be asking Randy Keaton to provide your January report. Since we last met, the board has held one regular meeting on October the 16th. At that meeting, we learned that the county fair had once again had revenues that exceeded expenditures. It continues to grow, prosper, and win national awards. Recall that just a few years ago, the county was supplementing operating costs. So on this good news, we went ahead and held 5 public hearings. First was an 18-acre solar project, a 3 megawatt project on one piece of farm, one owner, and will provide the family with supplemental income as they continued to farm the remainder 131 acres. The addition of this solar power allows the county to remain below our 2% threshold on prime farmland, and thus it was approved. The bad news is that the legislation, there may be bills coming out from the state trying to take the oversight of solar farms and projects away from counties and municipalities. So we'll be looking at that closely in this coming year. The second hearing that evening, on which no one chose to participate outside of staff and board members, addressed 2 short-term rental ordinances revisions. After some discussion, the board tabled the revisions and asked that it be brought back to the board with a redraft of several of those revisions on our December meeting. The third public meeting was to establish a short-term rental registry, which is closely linked to the previous public hearing. So again, we tabled that until our December meeting. The fourth public hearing was to revise our current county ordinances with Chesapeake Bay ordinances to clarify enforcement language. There were no public comments. The board approved those revisions. And finally, the fifth public hearing, again without public input, were changes to the county code to bring our code in line with state code, primarily dealing with licensing of farm equipment. I think we had that evening maybe 6 people in the audience. So we're not well attended like you guys. The board finalized its legislative priority list for the upcoming session, the spring of 2024. The number one item remains getting legislation allowing our citizens the opportunity to choose by referendum the form of taxation that is needed to pay for upcoming school capital projects. Currently, our only option is to raise the real estate property taxes. That referendum will allow for a 1% sales tax that exempts food and personal hygiene items and would be restricted so the board couldn't use the money for anything else but school capital projects. And we want that choice. If the residents of the county don't want to exercise it, at least they've had the opportunity to do so. There are 8 municipality counties currently in the Commonwealth that already have that privilege, and we want to know why we don't. That was followed by an intensive discussion with our school board members related to financing a mid-year 2% increase for all school personnel filling state-authorized SOQ positions. The state is furnishing $312,221, and the schools are asking the county for an additional $485,616 in matching funds, which is not exactly matching funds. A special meeting of the two boards will be forthcoming, and along with appropriate staff, and we will be meeting this Thursday to resolve how we're going to find the funding for this. The county board supports the 2% increase for teachers. It just has a question about everybody else. The decision is immediately followed by the county board being informed that the schools are seeking grant monies through the state for $71 million for a West Side replacement school, $7.5 million for a Carrollton Elementary School HVAC upgrade, and $4.7 million for Smithfield High School, a new band and choir room. The request for grants in no way obligates the county to fund any of these projects in the near term. However, see why we chose the 1% sales referendum as the #1 legislative agenda item. We need it. Isn't it interesting how easy the schools want to spend money when they don't have to worry about where the money comes from? And more important, thank goodness the schools do not have taxing authority. This is the last time I will be addressing this distinguished body. From now on, I'll be addressing it as a private citizen. With that said, are there any questions or concerns or questions that I could answer?
Thank you, Mr. Grice. Any questions by members of the Town Council for Mr. Grice?
If not, I'll let you get back to work, and it's been a real pleasure.
Dick, on behalf of the town, we would really like to thank you for your service to both the county, the town, and the Commonwealth of Virginia. You've done a yeoman's job, and you've always been there when we needed you, so I just want to say that, and we certainly do appreciate it. Godspeed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next into public comments is Natalie Roberts. Ms. Roberts? Again, these are matters that are not on the agenda or on the public hearing.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. My name is Natalie Roberts, and I am here on the behalf of my husband and myself. We live at 406 North Church Street in Smithfield and have been living in this home for about 23 years. And it's also my family's home, where we also are now the parents of 4 children. I'm here to address a problem with my home zoning that I thought was resolved 7 years or more way ago. In this exact room and some other rooms here, I've sat down and talked to Mayor Carter about this situation. And he also didn't understand why my residence wasn't zoned residential. and also Mr. Bill Hopkins, who is now deceased. The problem that we are having is our home is zoned commercial or heavy residential. Now, I understand that the plant is down the street. I understand that the Innovation Center is across the street, also at an angle. But just like everyone else, we are trying to, renovate like everybody else is building and renovating. We want to be able to keep our home intact also. So I would like to actually sit down with someone on the council, Ms. Tammy, whoever I need to sit down with to take the proper channels of this situation. Now, me and my family, we have no thoughts of moving anytime soon. So like I said, my husband and I and our 4 children, my 4 children are the 4th generation that lives here. And I do thank you all for putting out the safety children sign out down by the boat ramp and everything. That has really been a success. Mr. Mark also just replaced it not too long ago when somebody stole it, and he replaced it, so I was very grateful. But like I said, I thought this was taken care of years ago. So the problem that we're having is when it comes down to closing, we can't close because it is zone heavy heavy industrial or commercial. And my grandmother lived there, aunts, uncles, everybody else, everybody lived there. So the problem we're just not understanding is why that section cannot be residential. So we have until about 30 days to get back with an answer before we start this process all over again. And one thing about me, I am kind of persistent, so I will be back and be back and be back and be back and still come back.
We don't want you to have to do that. We
Yeah,
want
we
to
don't
try to
want to
help solve the
either.
problem, but I'm not.
Thank you.
Ms. Tynes was kind enough to call me on your behalf, and I
Yes.
suggested you come to the meeting. Can somebody give me a thumbnail sketch on what can or can't be done? Are y'all familiar, Tammy, you familiar with the house? I think we probably are.
Ma'am,
No,
can I get that address again?
406 North Church Street.
It's right across from the Innovation Center.
And then sometimes the problems we're also having is when we have different appraisers come out. Now, one might see one thing and then another see another thing. So we're a little confused with that
Well,
situation
if
also.
they look at the map, they'll know what they're looking at.
Yeah,
I
well,
think.
one puts in one thing and another puts in another thing. So we just
Ms.
need some clarity.
Thanks. Ms. Clary, can you tell us maybe a solution or where we can go or where we are, or if not, Mr. Riddick or?
So we have done some research on it. We can't find where it was discussed about a potential rezoning. It is zoned heavy industrial for that entire area. If we isolated that parcel and rezoned it as residential, it would be legal to be a spot rezoning.
It would be spot rezoning?
Correct, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Riddick, you want to elaborate a little bit further on that? Was that it?
I don't want to give an opinion on something I haven't looked into.
Okay. Well, then what do we need to do to, Tammy, does she need to fill out an application for rezoning and then we respond back? Or I understand the spot rezoning, I understand the dilemma that she's in, or do we just tell her at this point, based on what we've got, it is zoned the way it is and we can't carve it out? Is that basically what you're saying?
That is correct.
She can make an application,
Sure.
and you can consider it.
Okay.
And
Well, then what you need to do is go down and make an appointment, see Ms. Clary. She can fill out an application for a rezoning, and we can go from there and see where it goes. Is that correct? Okay.
And also when we do the letter, like he was saying, either if they cannot rezone, there's also a letter that can be written saying what can be, because I already know I'm grandfathered into certain things that
In
I
other
can
words,
do.
what can and can't do, they want clarification from the town, is what you're saying as well.
Different things like that, yes.
We'll do that, I can assure you.
And just, I will say this, if I may, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
She is not precluded from using the property for single-family residence in the current zoning, because she is grandfathered.
Right.
And so that may be sufficient for her mortgage company, if and we can explore that with Ms. Roberts, but the zoning administrator could give a letter to her stating that it's zoned for heavy industrial. However, the current use is a lawful non-conforming use and may continue. And that may be sufficient to satisfy her bank.
Well, y'all are a lot smarter as far as this is concerned. All I want to do is make sure we can help the lady out the best we possibly can.
But you shouldn't initiate the rezoning. She can do that with her
That's,
application.
absolutely, yeah.
Right, so that's why I'm here to see what
Yeah,
it is I need to
Get
do.
with Ms. Clary, and we'll start the ball rolling there. That's the best thing to do.
Okay, and who is Ms. Clary?
That's Ms. Tammy you were talking about.
All right,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Next is Bill Harris. Mr. Harris? Good evening, sir.
And good evening to you all. I want to know if I can have an avatar that looks as good as Randy's. Good evening and happy December. My name is Bill Harris. I live at 329 Gray Street in Smithfield. And first, just a re-congratulatory shout out to Michael and the staff and you guys on town council for staying on top of the thing with VDOT, and to the VDOT fellas for solving that mess around the bridge so it's not going to happen in the middle of Christmas celebration downtown. Also, thanks to all of you around the table, and again, the town staff for working with Smithfield Foods to come up with a resolution concerning the Red Barn located in the parking area behind the Smithfield Inn. From an historian standpoint, it's gratifying to know that the Isle of Wight Museum will be having the opportunity to secure parts of the barn and any artifacts from the barn for historical analysis and later display in the museum. And the building itself will be dismantled, and what is savable will be saved. In my view, a win-win for historic preservation, for Smithfield Foods, and for the homes that abut the dilapidated Red Barn. So, as most everyone here knows, I have long been an advocate for seeing the town council develop a long-range plan, a master plan, if you will, that will govern how the town deals with future issues of development and traffic management. And in my opinion, a significant part of that plan needs to be a firm commitment on the part of town leadership not to spend any public money in support of private development or private profit. Over the last couple of years, there has been much discussion about the town possibly entering into a private-public partnership with Mr. Luter's development team, but the citizens have heard no concrete response to that possibility.
Mr. Harris, if I'm not mistaken, I listened to the last Planning Commission meeting, and Dr. Pope, I thought, asked him specifically, is there going to be any request for that? And I thought his response was only that would be associated with the farmer's market should the town want to go down that path. I thought specifically that was, did I misunderstand that?
No, I heard the same thing, but that is a specific, and what I'm going to continue with is general.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So the topic has been brought up several times in different meetings over the years, and in most cases, the purpose seemed to be to give Mr. Luter an opportunity to explain why he feels justified in requesting public monies to support certain parts of the private profit development. It's dumbfounding to me and others that not once at any of these particular moments has town council rejected on its face any proposal that town council would enter into any relationship that commits public money to private profit. I suggest to you that tonight is the night that a motion should be made, that it becomes permanent town policy, that any developer who proposes development within limits of the town, current or future, shall not receive any public monies in support of their project, at all, full stop. When the topic of possible public-private partnerships has come up, we've heard from the Luter development team that the requested amount of money might be anywhere from $7 million to $10 million. Not only should it be a matter of policy the town never provides public money for private profit, let us think just for a moment how much could be done for the town of Smithfield if we had an extra $7 million laying around. We could use that money to fully fund our police department, fire department, or other emergency services, providing salaries that are not only competitive, but are the best in the area. We can ensure that the salaries of all town staff and municipal employees are not just among the best in the area, but are the very best, period. We could provide necessary capital improvement on town-owned buildings and parking lots. We could do a better job providing historical markers throughout the town that recognize important historical buildings and sites, as well as defining historical moments in our history. But since we don't have an extra $7 to $10 million laying around, we cannot do these type of important things. My question is, what sense does it make to enter into an agreement that would pledge millions of dollars that we do not have to benefit a developer when there is so much that needs to be done here for citizen taxpayers. So I'm going to conclude where I began. It is time that we have a long-range plan in place to deal with the challenges of what lies ahead in our future, and central to that long-range plan must be a town policy that prohibits the spending of citizen money to enrich private profit projects. I suggest to you that this is a good night to put a motion out that this becomes town policy for every day from here on in the future. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Next is Mary Harris. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm Mary Harris. I live at 329 Gray Street. First, I'd like to compliment our, mostly, I guess, our town staff and tourist folks for the job well done on the Christmas in Smithfield, which we participated in this weekend. We also were docents at one of the homes. We've been here 31 years and seen quite a growth in those activities, and this year was really a stellar event. Now on to my general comments. All of you have said how much you appreciate the citizens coming to the meetings and being engaged. However, the level of discouragement by the people who participate is extremely high. I know that some of you see this. When citizens like myself attend meetings, speak about concerns, and little is addressed or discussed about those concerns, it is no less than disappointing. A great example is how the planning commissioners and the town council seem to have little to no comment about those who live in downtown Smithfield and their concerns about traffic and unchecked growth. Who better to advise the town on issues in this area than the people who live here, invest here, and support the activities and plans of the town? A great example is what happened this weekend with lots of the residents who live downtown volunteering and supporting the downtown Smithfield activities and spending money at the Mistletoe Market. What I am asking you to do is to listen to us, consider and discuss our concerns, involve us in finding workable solutions to the issues and concerns, and then sharing what is decided in a very transparent way. There was and continues to be more discussion occurring on signs and vaping shops and things like that than has occurred about the concerns presented about the unchecked growth and traffic that have been discussed by citizens for the last 2 years. And I am one of those who've discussed that, in particular the traffic. As I said, no one has more investment in seeing Smithfield be successful than the citizens. No one that I know wants to see Smithfield Foods leave or other businesses abandon Smithfield, which is commonly said to try and convince us or citizens to not ask or even demand that issues be addressed. There is a common ground here somewhere. We have not found that common ground. We hear NIMBY, not in my backyard, which, by the way, I have to say again, no one, and that includes most of you, have a stronger desire for Smithfield to remain a vibrant and successful town than the downtown residents. My home is my biggest investment. So why do so many feel abandoned? That is a great question for you to consider. If you go back and look at public comments over the past 2 years, I know this because I've attended those meetings, you will see what issues you have resolved. I think you will find that many have not been addressed adequately at all. Traffic and congestion is at the top of that list. Concerns about overdevelopment and overwhelming our schools and public services is also at the top of that list. So my message to you is to please listen to the citizens, try to be unbiased and selfless, put the citizens first, and work hard and don't give up until you find acceptable solutions to these issues. I appreciate how hard you work. However, rushing and trying to move forward too fast on anything can result in unintended consequences to our beautiful town. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Next is Howard Cromwell. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Howard Cromwell, and I've lived in Smithfield since Memorial Weekend of 2004. So I guess I can say I'm a fairly long-time resident. I retired in the fall of September 2015. And since then, I haven't had the luxury of being in commuter traffic going back and forth to work. But over the last 6 or 7 months, I found myself having to be in other cities to take care of business, and unfortunately, come home during commuter hours. And I find it almost impossible to believe that from being on the James River Bridge, about a third of a mile from the end of the bridge, living near Church and Battery Park, that it would take me anywhere on 3 different occasions to take an hour and a half to 2 hours to get home. It just seems impossible to me. And then I go out to Carrollton Boulevard to go to an auto repair place, and where I have to make a U-turn, people traveling from other parts of Isle of Wight or wherever they're coming from, it takes 15 minutes or 20 minutes even to make a U-turn to get into a business. Traffic is horrible everywhere. The lady that spoke before me addressed that directly, and other folks have also. Something needs to be done with the traffic. I think part of the problem is the fact that over at least the last 5 to 8 years, there's been what seems to be uncontrolled growth in multifamily and single-family homes throughout Isle of Wight, which has only compounded other areas, not only the roads, but schools, transportation in general. So I think town of Smithfield as a hub should work with its surrounding neighbors and really come across with a policy or some type of change that can be amicable for all to make the roads better and safer and to improve conditions in general. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cromwell. Bob Hines?
Bob Hines, excuse me, 216 Washington Street. I've just got 2 things on this part of it. Please use your microphones when you speak. I've said this so many times. I've been at these meetings and seen people's microphone like that, and they're talking like this, can't be heard. So some of you have great speaking voices, don't even need a microphone, but some do. Second thing is, you're going to be selecting 2 new council members. I know this isn't going to happen, but I'd like to see you wait till those 2 people get on here before you vote for the Grange. Thank you.
Thank you. Council have any comments? That's the end of as far as public comments on it. Council? Thank you. Next is consent agenda items. Item C1, 2024 meeting schedule. Mr. Stallings?
Yes, sir. Included in your packet is the meeting schedule for the 2024 calendar year. Generally, it follows our same protocol, other than when meetings would fall on or adjacent to holidays. We've had to move committee meetings around for that, but otherwise it follows our normal protocol.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Butler, do you have a follow-up on that, ma'am?
No, Michael took care of it.
Okay. Item C2, Vice Mayor Butler?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the subdivision agreement for Mallory Point Phase A, which is basically the infrastructure phase.
Vice Mayor, I'd like to pull that for further discussion.
Okay.
Okay, we'll pull that and discuss, and further discussion during this meeting, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
All right. The next item is item C3, invoices. Mr. Pack?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. We have 2 invoices this evening that are in excess of $20,000, which require council authorization. Blair Brothers is the first one, the Pagan Road Project, $112,364. And then we've received 1 additional invoice since Finance Committee to All First LLC. This is for a bypass pump, sewer bypass pump at Bradford Muse, $89,596. We do recommend that these invoices are approved this evening.
Okay. Council have any questions on items C1, C3, A, or B? If not, the chair will entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve C1, C3, A, and B.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Brooks. Further discussion? Call the question, please, ma'am.
Mrs. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Pack?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks? Yes. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Bowman?
Yes. Now we're back to C2. Councilman Smith, did you want to?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The reason why I've asked to pull this is, this Mallory Point subdivision agreement is because, there was so much contention with this project, not many months ago, that I feel like we owe it to the public, and maybe Ms. Clary can help us understand what this is, we are actually voting on, so the public can have full disclosure of what this piece is. It's a housekeeping type thing, but I feel like the public deserves this instead of us just shoving this through the consent agenda.
Ms. Clary?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. This is the subdivision agreement that accompanies the final plat for the project. What this agreement does is the developer is promising to install the infrastructure in accordance with town standards, and it also sets the water and sewer availability fees and connection fees for the project. It's also our gateway for our bond of the infrastructure that we need to have in place before we can release the developer to go ahead and commence work on Phase A of the Mallory Point subdivision. Finally, it also provides for our inspection fees. We collect inspection fees for our water and sewer, and along with our roadway infrastructure.
Yes,
Tammy,
Vice Mayor Butler?
could you let the citizens know that this process will happen at each phase that they're constructing?
Yes, that is correct. For each phase, they will have a final plat, and they will have a subdivision agreement along with the deeds of easement that will accompany that.
Further questions by members of council?
No, I appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you.
If not, the item C2 is before council for consideration.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve that as presented.
Motion made by Councilman Smith to approve as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Butler. Further discussion? Call the question, please, ma'am.
Vice Mayor Butler? Yes. Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Pack?
Yes.
Mrs. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Bowman?
Yes. That's all I have on the consent agenda items. Next items are the action section. The first is public hearing, zoning ordinance amendment, dealer pawn brokers. Tammy Clary, Director of Planning and Community Development. Ms. Clary, good evening.
Yes, good evening. Thank you. What we are proposing is to add dealers to our zoning ordinance. This would accompany payday lending establishments, check cashing establishments, and pawn shops. This would be a special use permit item in the Highway Retail Commercial, the HRC, the Planned Shopping Center District, PSC, the Planned Mixed Use District, PMUD, Light Industrial District, I1, and Heavy Industrial District, I2. We will also be removing payday lending establishments, check cashing establishments, and pawn shops from residential office and downtown. We would also be including a definition in Article 13 for our precious metals dealer. This would be any person, firm, partnership, corporation engaged in the business of purchasing secondhand precious metals or gems, removing any precious metals or gems from manufactured articles not then owned by the person, buying, acquiring, selling precious metals or gems. It would also include all employers, principals on behalf that the purchase is made. Precious metals means any item except coins comprised in, whole or a part of gold, silver, platinum, or platinum alloys. This is a definition that we did pull from Virginia code. We would also be including the definition of pawnbroker, any natural person who lends or advances money or other things for profit on the pledge of possession of tangible personal property or other valuable things other than securities or written or printed evidences of indebtedness or title, who deals in the purchasing of personal property or other valuable things on the condition of selling the same back to the seller at a stipulated price. We would also like to incorporate Virginia Code into Section 26 of the Town Code, also including one section that we pulled from Chesapeake, which requires electronic reporting. At the Tuesday, November 14th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting, this application was favorably recommended to Town Council for approval with the removal of the definition of second-hand dealers. Town staff do recommend robust discussion and consensus on finalized language. Thank you.
Questions of Ms. Clary? Thank you. Question, Chief Howell, please.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Chief, as we well know, in my former job, we dealt with pawn shops a lot. Has the reporting system, is it still up to standards of what we need, or is this going to unduly burden the police department as far as having to go by there, check sheets, do that, or is it just something in the course of the normal work that you would do? I know if we get a tip or something, we go by there and do this, but are things a little bit better than they used to be, or not any worse than they used to be, or does this give you any heartburn?
No, sir. If they're reporting electronically, we will be able to go up online and see what items have been pawned or what have you. And so it's easier than having to physically go to the location and do a paper search.
Along that same line, do we still go in and make sure that from an electronic perspective, they are actually reporting what's coming and going out of there to make sure that it shows up on the electronic sheet?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Questions of Chief Howell? Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Any further questions before the public hearing?
No, just a comment, though.
Mr. Brooks.
The electronic reporting, I know of a case in Virginia Beach and one in Richmond that was close to what I do, is essential. And it helps solve some cases of theft. And I think that is the important part of this whole project. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. I don't have anyone.
No one signed up.
No one signed up on this. Anyone wish to be heard on this matter? I'll close the public hearing, and the matter is before Town Council.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Mr.
from
Pack.
Planning Commission. Yes, sir. The Planning Commission did make a favorable recommendation to Town Council for this zoning ordinance. We kind of tossed this back and forth and describing what we wanted this ordinance to look like, to keep businesses we felt were less desirable for our community in areas that they would not be affected. So effectively, the dealers and pawnbrokers are only allowed by special use, which will allow us to put any type of proper controls on them to prevent any type of negative elements to our community. That was our thought process when we do that. We'll also do that with the public hearing about to come up with the recreational substances. We'll address that then. But there was a lot of consulting of other communities and what they had in there. Ms. Clary and her staff did a wonderful job putting this together. And we feel we've presented a very responsible zoning ordinance amendment to Town Council and are hopeful that Town Council will see it as such tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Pack by members of council? Okay. The matter is before council.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to,
Mr. Smith.
Go ahead, Mike.
thank you. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the zoning ordinance amendment as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr.
Second.
Pack. Further discussion? Call the question, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Pack?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Bowman?
Yes.
Mayor Bowman, if I may real quick, there's also, as part of that, there's a town code change and not just the ordinance change. So if we can have a motion to adopt that as well.
So moved.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Pack to adopt the code aspect of it as well. Further discussion on that matter? If you're ready, Leslie, you can call the roll.
Mr. Pack?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Bowman?
Yes. Next item on the agenda is public hearing zoning ordinance amendment recreational substance alternative retail sales. Ms. Clary?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. This is for the regulation of recreational substance establishments. We would be adding in our definitions section the exclusion of recreational substance establishments and retail sales establishments to the definition of a convenience store. And we would also be including recreational substance establishments as exclusion from retail sales establishment definition. We would then be providing a definition for the recreational substances. Unless modified or otherwise conditioned by the town council at the time of approval, recreational substance uses shall be subject to the following limitations and requirements. It would be a special use permit that should fully consider the proximity of the proposed shop to schools, religious institutions, libraries, other institutional uses, and residential uses, and shall limit the hours of operation accordingly. The hours of operation would be limited from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m., Monday through Sunday. It would regulate any sales where their inventory was 25% or more of these substances, or their total display area was 15% or more. It would require that during all hours of operation, the glass portion of the front windows would need to not be heavily tinted or obscured, and no smoking or vaping shall be permitted on the premise at any time unless the establishment complies with the Virginia Indoor Clean Air Act. We would also continue to identify that recreational substances include the following: any product made of tobacco, including cigarettes, cigars, smokeless tobacco, and pipe tobacco; any non-combustible product containing nicotine or vaping fluid that employs a heating element, power source, or other electronic, chemical, or mechanical means, regardless of shape or size, that can be used to produce vapor from a solution or other form; any product containing hemp, kratom, CBD, or other similar substance, including any raw material from these products; any pipe, hookah, water pipe, vaporizer, glassware, or other type of device, wrappings, or accessories associated with the consumption and/or inhalation of the above-mentioned substances and materials. This would be a special use permit item for recreational substance establishments that would be in the downtown, highway retail commercial, planned shopping center, planned mixed-use development, light industrial, commercial industrial, and heavy industrial. It would not be permitted in the residential office. At the Tuesday, November 14th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting, this application was favorably recommended to Town Council for approval with the inclusion of other similar substances in the definition of recreational substances. Town staff do recommend a robust discussion and a favorable approval on finalized language. Thank you.
Any questions of Ms. Clary from members of council? Mr. Pack, did you want to comment on behalf of Planning Commission?
Yes, sir. Again, it's very similar to the previous comments for the dealers and pawnbrokers. We put together a recommendation for town council that simply suggests that these are stores that we don't particularly want in our very visible locations. We have banned them from several areas and made them only by special use in others. We do feel like we've presented a really strong and similar to other localities, a very strong ordinance for us to amend tonight. We do recommend approval of this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Any questions, Mr. Pack? Thank you. To open the public hearing on this matter, I don't have anyone signed up for it, but if you'd like to speak on this matter, please come forward. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. The matter is before the council for action.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to see us adopt the zoning ordinance amendment for the recreational substance and alternative retail sales.
Is there a code section that goes with that one as well? No code section on that one. Motion made by Mr. Smith. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Brooks. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. I'm sorry.
Aye.
Nope, sorry. Call the question.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Freudian slip.
Mrs. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Pack?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Butler? Yes. Mayor Bowman?
Yes, thank you. Next item on the agenda is public hearing, excuse me, The Grange at 10. Tammy Clary, Director of Planning and Community Development.
Yes, thank you. The applicant is proposing to construct 267 total units. There will be 5 cottages, short-term rentals, 32 duplex unit lots, 48 single-family dwelling unit lots, and 182 apartments. This project also includes the Smithfield Market, which will host at least one restaurant, retail space, and several vendor spaces. There will be a 3-story hotel, not to exceed 42 feet in height, with proposed retail space and restaurant space. There will be a one-story retail building, a two-story and one-story professional office buildings. Additional improvements include parking areas. The proposed development can be accessed via 5 entrances. First one would be the future extension of James Street. This entrance would align, previous slide please. It's okay. This entrance would align with the entrance off Cary Street to the YMCA. There would be one on the extension of Grace Street, 2 off of Main Street, which would be the Grange, and then right in, right out on Main, and the right in only off of Route 10. The first aspect of this application is the conditional official zoning map amendment. This is the rezoning. The desired use of the property would be classified as single-family attached and detached, duplex, a mix of residential dwellings, community buildings, swimming pools, parks, fields, related facilities, hotels, offices, retail sales, all of which are permitted use in the planned mixed-use district. The applicants are also proposing multifamily residential dwellings, which are permitted in the PMUD only after acquiring a special use permit. We have our comprehensive plan amendment, which is our future land use amendment. If you look at the screen, you can see that a majority of the area is in that dark red color. That's our commercial mixed use designation. There is one remaining parcel that is designated as the historic district residential, which is the teal color up at the top. And then the remaining small 10 parcels right up front that are in the purple color. Again, the majority of this project is in compliance with the future land use map with that commercial mixed use designation. The first special use permit is for multifamily residential dwellings. This is so that the applicant can construct 182 apartments. They would be on the east side of the property closest to Route 10 and would be comprised of 7 3-story buildings. 3 of the buildings are 15 carriage houses over garages, and they will feature a maximum height of 39 feet. Accompanying the multifamily residential dwelling will be a 2-story clubhouse, less than 35 feet in height, with a pool and dog park. Next slide, please. Thank you. The second special use permit is for a waiver of maximum density. This is to allow, the PMUD allows for 12 dwelling units per net developer acre for the multifamily dwellings. The applicants are proposing a density of 23.6 dwelling units per developer acre for the multifamily dwellings. The overall density for the entire project is 7 dwelling units per acre. Slide, please. And that would include the single family and duplex units. Isolated, the single family and duplex dwelling units are at 2.9 dwelling units per net developer acre. The PMUD does allow for 8 dwelling units for attached dwellings and 5 dwelling units for detached dwellings. The third special use permit is for a waiver of parking and loading requirements. The applicants are seeking this because our PMUD requires 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit, plus 1 visitor space for every 3 units in the multifamily dwelling. Also, Article 8B4, which requires off-street parking to be located on the same lot. They are providing 2 spaces per dwelling unit for the multifamily dwellings, which would be 364 spaces instead of the required 425 parking spaces. They are also proposing a shared parking agreement for the development, which does include off-street parking. And finally, they're also seeking relief from Article 8B17 and 8F1E to allow off-street loading spaces to also count towards required parking spaces. The remaining parking spaces for the restaurant, retail, office, hotel, and market are in conformance with the zoning ordinance. Slide, please. Thank you. The fourth special use permit is a waiver of yard requirements. The PMUD requires for commercial, a 40-yard front yard setback, a 20-yard side yard setback, and a 20-foot yard rear setback. The applicants are proposing a 0 front yard setback, a 10 side yard setback, and a 20 rear yard setback. That results in a reduction of 40 feet for the commercial front yard setback and a reduction of 10 feet for the commercial side yard setback. For the residential, the PMUD requires 35-foot front yard setback, 15-foot side yard setback, and 35-foot rear yard setback. Slide, please. Slide again. And one more. we go. The residential that they are proposing would be a 14-foot front yard setback, a 10-foot side yard setback, and a 25-foot rear yard setback, seeking a reduction in 21 feet for the front yard, 5 feet for the side yard, and 10 feet for the rear yard. Slide, please. Thank you. Additionally, the applicants are seeking a reduction in the required front yard setback for the multifamily dwellings, 25 feet, allowing for a front yard setback of 10 feet. Finally, they are requesting a waiver of the yard requirements to allow for a smaller setback requirement where the property is contiguous to a separate zoning district. This is the downtown zoning district for the two properties along Main Street, which comprise the Schoolhouse Museum. The fifth special use permit is for 5 short-term rental units. Each unit is a single detached single-family dwelling that will be utilized as a rental property. The sixth special use permit is for a waiver of maximum building height. This is for the 7 3-story multifamily apartments, and for the hotel, the 3-story multifamily buildings will not exceed 39 feet, and the hotel will not exceed 42 feet. The remaining buildings will not exceed 35 feet in height. This application originally appeared on the Planning Commission agenda as a public hearing item on Tuesday, May 9th, 2023, and a discussion item at the Wednesday, May 24th, 2023 Special Planning Commission meeting. At the Tuesday, June 13th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission had the following recommendations. Favorably recommend approval of the conditional official zoning map amendment, rezoning. Favorable recommend approval of the request for the comprehensive plan amendment, the future land use map amendment. Favorable recommend to allow multifamily residential dwellings in the development with the conditions that the buildings do not exceed a height of 46.5 feet for the 4-story and 39 for the 3-story. Favorable recommendation for a waiver of maximum density to allow no more than 27.5 dwelling units for the multifamily residential dwelling units, and a net overall development containing 7.9 dwelling units. There was a recommendation of denial of the SUP for a waiver of maximum building height. They favorably recommended the waiver of parking and loading requirements and the waiver of yard requirements and the short-term rentals. At the Tuesday, July 11th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting, Dr. Pope expressed clarification on his motion to recommend denial of the SUP for the waiver of maximum building height. He stated that he was in support of the hotel and the 3-story buildings, and it was his intention to deny the height request for the 4-story buildings. This application did appear as a public hearing item at the August 1st, 2023 Town Council meeting, and a work session was held on Thursday, August 31st, 2023. This item appeared as a discussion item at the Tuesday, September 5th Town Council meeting and was referred back to the Planning Commission. At the Tuesday, November 14th, 2023 Planning Commission, the Planning Commission favorably recommended this rezoning, comprehensive plan amendment, future land use map amendment, and 6 special use permit applications. Please keep in mind, based on the comments received and in accordance with the documentary study, town staff suggest archaeological monitoring of ground disturbance during development. Since this application originally appeared before Town Council, the following items have been updated. There was the removal of the medical office space and the increase in professional office square footage. The total number of units was reduced from 304 to 267. Duplexes were reduced from 34 units to 32 units. Apartments reduced from 212 to 182 units. And the number of single-family dwellings reduced to 48 units. There was the removal of the 4-story multifamily apartment buildings. The overall density was reduced from 7.9 to 7 units, and multifamily density decreased from 27.5 to 23.6. Single-family and duplex dwelling unit density decreased from 3.4 to 2.9. There was an increase in open space from 21% to 24%, and the applicants are now providing a designated right turn lane for the entrance on Carey Street. Thank you.
Any questions by members of council for Ms. Clary?
Thank you.
Just for the last Planning Commission recommendation was unanimous?
Yes, that is correct. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, is developer present or represented? Good day, sir. The way we're going to do this is you'll have 10 minutes, since we've been a little bit, 10 minutes to present your, after the public hearing, you'll provided 5 minutes to rebut whatever you may hear as well as far as the public hearing is concerned.
Okay.
Okay? Mr. Riddick, ready?
Yes.
State your name for the record, please, and who you represent.
This thing is, I'm small and short, but this is really short. Joe Luter for 19259 Farm Road. It doesn't seem to want to work. Oh, thank you. Operator error, sorry. Good evening. After the September meeting, I called my father and provided him some details of the meeting and shared with him specifically the objections. We talked about density, we talked about traffic. He understood the argument. He understood the concern of some of the citizens, and he challenged us to go back and see if we could find a viable revised plan. He remained concerned that Smithfield Foods does not have the amenities in the town that they need, and that them looking for an alternative site was a legitimate concern. I spoke with several council members about a revised plan and what was needed to get approval. The plan before you, as Ms. Clary just identified, reduces overall density by 12%, eliminated the fourth story of the apartment component, and added a turn lane off of Mill Swamp Road as it turns into Cary at Goose Creek Way in the YMCA. And I've highlighted that because I think that that's important. And the reason I think that that's important is by adding that turn lane, I think a lot of the people that historically come down Cary off of Mill Swamp Road will very likely choose to come through our development as opposed to down Cary in the morning hours. With respect to traffic, it's important to note several other things. Number one, we had 3 professionals look at this plan. The original plan was approved by those professionals. So we have reduced the density, we've reduced the traffic count, and we've added that lane. Number 2, we remain committed as a team to try and assist the town and county to get better flow in and out of the town and the county, not just this project, but for the benefit of the town and the county. And number 3, this project, one of the big concerns is people coming down Gray Street. With the elimination of Gray Street as it exists today and requiring people to come into this project through Grange, they're going to hit a stop sign. And by hitting that stop sign, it's going to naturally, number one, slow traffic down, but number 2, I believe it will encourage those that go to the plant through downtown to use Berry Hill Road. And that's just a personal opinion. Some people have asked about the phasing of this project, and I'd like to address that. Tip. So if the project is approved, we would hope to start infrastructure and the market in the Q4 of 2024 or Q1 of 2025. Phase 2, which includes the apartments, cannot start until VDOT finalizes a timeline for the additional lanes at the corner of Main and 10 Bypass. We anticipate this occurring in 2026. It's important to note that the bridge improvements in town will be complete long before any construction is complete at the Grange. Demand and financing will drive the timeline for construction of single-family duplexes and the hotel, but we anticipate the total timeline of this project to be 7 to 10 years. I want to reiterate that we are committed to building a market that the town and county support and we all can afford, and that we are not seeking taxpayer funding for the private components of this project. Regarding the single family and duplexes, Wellandfield Row is no longer part of this project. We are in discussions with a number of home builders who share our vision for this project and will ultimately have to receive BHAR approval prior to any construction. We still intend to build the apartments and hold them as a long-term investment. Lastly, this has been a lengthy process, and as Tammy just recounted, this is the 9th public hearing on this project. It's been a lengthy and an emotional process for all parties involved. I assembled an experienced and professional team to help me and help our family with this project. Given it's the last project my father is involved in, you can be assured I want my father to be proud of it. We all know the quality of prior Luter projects, and this project will be no different. We held public meetings, listened to comments and concerns, and modified our plans where we thought feasible and appropriate. Despite these efforts, the misinformation, disinformation, and attacks on my team have been vitriol, sad, and in some cases slanderous. I ask that you please vote the Grange tonight one way or the other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Luter. Any questions by members of council for the applicant? All right, so we may have some, I'll have to rebuttal. This is a public hearing. The first person I have signed up is Henry McBurney. Mr. McBurney? Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
State your name, please.
My name is Henry McBurney, 502 Cranford Road, Smithfield. In evaluating the quality of life issues for us, my wife and I, relocating here initially some 33 years ago, one factor stood apart from the rest. That was a commitment the Luter family and our corporate good neighbor, Smithfield Foods, demonstrated in giving to this town and region. The many quality of life contributions the Luter family have made to this region over the ensuing 33 years have certainly validated our decision. Today, this council is voting on an application from the Luter family to develop 57 acres of land within the historical district. I come before you to voice support for each of you voting to approve this application known as the Grange at 10 Main. I sincerely believe approving this application to be in the best interest of our town and region. I suggest two unsaid factors are very relevant to this decision. One, the quality of all of the quality of life contributions the Luter family have made to our community over many years have always been to the highest standards and of the highest quality. Number two, change is the only universal constant. This 57 acres of land will be developed. Therefore, who better to develop this property for the sorely needed hotel rooms, residential housing, and additional businesses within the historical district than the Luter family? I look forward to the Grange at 10 Main project proceeding under the stewardship of the Luter family. I have confidence our town will get the quality we have become accustomed to. The influx of new town residents along with the hotel rooms will add vigor, idea, job opportunities, and tax revenue to our town. A permanent farmers market will become a regional attraction and offer other innovative ways to benefit and enhance our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McBurney. Next person I have is Mr. Jim Monroe. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
State your name for the record, please.
Jim Monroe, Williamsburg, Virginia. I work here in Smithfield at Smithfield Foods.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak. Again, I'm Jim Monroe, Vice President of Corporate Affairs for Smithfield Foods, and I'm here to again express our company's very strong support for the Grange at 10 Main. I spoke at length about our support of the project at the August 1 Town Council meeting, and I'll summarize the reasons for Smithfield's very strong support. Smithfield Foods is a well-established but still growing company. The biggest challenge we face as we pursue profitable growth is access to labor in our offices, on our farms, and at our processing facilities. Here in Smithfield, we employ many office workers, which is likely to be the fastest growing demographic for our local hiring in the future. The particular challenge here in Smithfield is successfully recruiting young professionals. We lose recruits to competitors and other businesses because of the lack of housing options and other amenities in this community. The amenities and additional quality housing options promised by the Grange will enhance our ability to recruit the talented professionals we need for our operations, finance and accounting, human resources, marketing, corporate affairs, legal, and other teams here in Smithfield. In addition to its recruitment value, we envision the many other benefits from the Grange project. The Grange offers great options for temporary housing options for members of our team who come to Smithfield for extended stays while working on long-term projects. We also struggle for meeting and event space and would welcome more options in that regard. We recognize and value what folks in this town want to preserve. We want to preserve it too, and I have no doubt that the Grange project will complement the downtown area and build on the Luter family's track record of tasteful development. Smithfield Foods wholeheartedly supports the Grange at 10 Main. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Monroe. Any questions? Ms.? Okay. Thank you.
I just wonder if there's any way we can get that microphone adjusted.
As long as it's pointed up, you don't have to drop down to it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just needs to be pointed up.
Thank you, sir.
Too late.
We, as a sidebar issue, we discussed the acoustics and the need for some retrofitting on acoustics here in downtown, everything, and that'll be before council before too much longer, believe me.
Because they don't look like they're comfortable.
Oh, I know. I'm sorry for that, for sure. Mr. Jesse Lanier? Ms. Jesse, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Jesse Lanier, 101 Prestwick. I have no opposition to the Grange project itself. Built on the edge of the historic district, I believe it will offer a little flavor to Smithfield without actually changing the taste of the town. My concern with the project is, number one, the proposed BMP pond on Main Street. I know you have seen the open ponds at the intersection of Route 17 and Ben's Church Boulevard. Can any of you say anything positive about those ponds other than they hold water? Let's look realistically at the proposed pond on Main Street. Please tell me something, anything about the pond that will enhance our town. Let's look closer. It will be at the entrance of the historic district, therefore maintenance will be crucial. It has the potential of being dangerous, even if surrounded by a fence, but you know this. In addition, tourism has well-planned and well-attended festivals. With the buildup of the Grange, where will these additional vehicles be parked? Where will the high school homecoming parade be staged? I know you love this town and you want the best for its citizenry. Perhaps you have parking plans the public has not been privy to. Will the commuter parking lot, the neighborhood streets, Main Street Baptist Church parking lot be the new designated parking area? Where will visitors park? The most logical solution to this foreseeable parking problem is to build a parking lot above that pond. right here. My question to you is, why are you not amenable to this? Why? We need additional parking spaces, not less. Lastly, last week, Monday ago, I was in this very room. When I left, I went by way of Grace Street. A car turning left on Carey Street turned in front of me, causing a collision. Fortunately, I was not injured, but my vehicle suffered fatal damage. The residents of Grace and Carey Street were incredible, calling the police and assisting me. I was told the Smithfield Police Department is frequently called to Grace Street because of traffic concerns. To have 5,000 vehicles travel on that road daily is unthinkable. There are ways to reduce the traffic that's cost efficient. Now, I'm not an engineer, far from it, but just using a little common sense. If you placed right here a right-hand turn only, nobody can go down Grace Street from the farmer's market. A right-hand turn, don't close that street.
1 minute remaining.
Okay? Wouldn't that funnel traffic back to Main Street? I'm positive there are ways to keep much of the traffic off Grace Street. The next accident could possibly be fatal. Let's invest in insurance coverage now for both the pond on Main and the traffic on Grace. Please, you have to do the right thing. It may cost more, but it is an investment that's worth making. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Ms. Lanier. Richard Lanier? Good evening, sir.
Good evening to all. I'm not as good as my wife, but I'll do the best I can.
State your name.
Mayor Bowman, Vice Mayor Butler, Town Council, members and staff. I am Richard Lanier, 101 Prestwick, Smithfield, Virginia. The revised grain design does not address items that many of the citizens of Smithfield would like to have addressed. I recall the first meeting I attended where the Grange project developer and his staff was present. It was held at Main Street Baptist Church. The major topic of discussion was opposition to the proposed open B&P pond to be located on Main Street across from the church and the Church Manor apartment complex. The developer was asked to consider an open B&P pond that would be unsafe for the young children in the area. The developer was also asked to consider an underground B&P pond with a parking lot above it, which would be better use of that land area. The developer assured us at that time that our concerns would be noted and considered. Well, as you know, our concerns were not considered, and I think they were trash canned. When the second plan for the grain project was presented to the town, that proposed open B&P pond was actually increased in size. We were later told that an underground B&P pond could not be put in that location because of the soil content. That is not correct. A pre-engineered underground B&P pond can be installed in various soil types. I have come before the Planning Commission and the Town Council several times concerning that pond. If the revised Grange design map is correct, The pond will be within 6 to 8 feet of Main Street. An open B&P pond in that location would be very close to the Schoolhouse Museum. It would be across the street from Main Street Baptist Church and directly across the street from the Church Manor apartment complex, where I say again, many young children live. An open B&P pond in that location would not be safe. It would attract wildlife and eventually become a hazard. The history of putting items in communities while disregarding the citizens of that area must not continue. An underground B&P pond with a parking lot will provide overflow parking for Main Street Baptist Church. That was promised, and it would be within walking distance for seniors. The parking lot would also provide additional parking for town events held on Main Street. Many citizens in Smithfield may have lost confidence in our town leaders. I have not. I have not. I believe this council will listen to the citizens of Smithfield. You must listen to us. I'm not opposed to the development of the Pierceville farmland.
1 minute.
However, I believe the citizens of Smithfield should have input as to how the Princeville farmland could and should be developed. Don't rush to vote on the New Grange project. The New Grange project must be totally vested. There are questions the developer should answer. One, we understand that an underground B&P pond will be put in front of one of the apartment complexes. If that is so, within 2 blocks, why can't one be put on the corner of Main and Grange? Why were we told that one could not be put there? All of us have access to Google. We can do research. I ask each of you to research.
Your time has expired.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bill Harris?
Good evening, all. I'm back. Bill Harris, 329 Gray Street, Smithfield, Virginia. So much has been said about the pros and cons of the proposed Grange project over the last couple of years that it seems unlikely that anything new can be added to the discussion. I have to disagree with that assertion. Although it seems that we know a great deal about the project, it is also quite true that we know very little in terms of specifics. So many of us in the general citizenry cannot understand why we don't know what the project will look like or what the tangible benefits will be to those who are already living in Smithfield. Mr. Luter's team has done an excellent job in using the appropriate buzzwords and building support for the project as a whole. We've heard about walkability and amenities, but what we have heard are just generalities and very few specifics in regards to walkability and amenities. Before Town Council considers giving its approval to Mr. Luter's application for development, I suggest the Town Council require more specific as to the actual look and actual offerings of the Grange. I can't imagine I'm the only person here that finds the suggestion that the Grange, as is, will increase walkability when there's virtually nothing being built in the commercial area of the Grange that enhances walkability. Over the past couple of years, citizens have made a number of suggestions as to what they might like to see in the retail section that would, indeed, encourage more walkability. But from the Luter team, we have heard no mention of a pharmacy, a corner market that would sell the basics, a child care center, a teen center, a pizza shop, or anything like that that could be accessed on foot. There is a great potential for all of these types of things in the Grange retail area, and undoubtedly these things would provide an easier and high-quality life for the residents of the Grange and the residents of that end of town. But instead, right now, the reality is this. The residents of the Grange will have to get into their cars to do just about everything that normal life requires. They'll have to get in their car to go to the store, to the pharmacy, to the doctor, to take their children to school, take their children to after-school activities, to houses of worship. And for those who do not work close by in town, they'll have to get in the car to go to work. The traffic studies provided by Mr. Luter's traffic expert focuses primarily on the to and from required for going to and from work, but does little to take into account all the necessary car trips that will be generated by just living life. The traffic impact on the town of Smithfield, and the historic district in particular, cannot be overstated. And as long as the Grange does little to provide amenities for its people to stay on foot or on bicycles or on golf carts, the traffic situation will increase exponentially. And let us recall that early in the process, when such suggestions were made, the Luter team said things like, well, we'll have to get together with committees of citizens so citizen suggestions could be taken into account when the final pieces of the Grange are put together. We all know that such meetings have not taken place, but it is not too late to have those type of meetings. But if we do not have them before approval is given, it could be much too late. It is well within the purview and the power of the town council to slow this process down so that more specifics are known and better understanding is generated. We ask you to insist that the developer provide more specifics as to the look, the feel, and what benefits on a day-to-day living the Grange will provide for the citizens of the Grange and the citizens of Smithfield. We're only going to get one chance at making this right. Please slow it down and let us do it right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, Dick Rice.
Dick Rice, 415 Muirfield, citizen.
Yes, sir.
The property under consideration this evening is ultimately going to be developed unless someone or group collectively purchases the land and turns it into either a petting zoo that was once recommended or leases it out for growing crops. This current project proposal has undergone a lengthy process in many governmental levels that includes numerous revisions based upon and including citizen input. It arrives here tonight with 100% of the town's planning commission voting in favor of this latest revision. And it is step one in the process. It still has to go through site approvals and all kinds of inspections. So since we have heard or have not heard from any European royalty this evening offering to buy the property from Mr. Luter, the question before this council is, who do we want to develop this property? Is it the family who has long loved this community and has provided a YMCA, the property for the Windsor Castle Park, a much-needed public restroom for our tourists in downtown, principal funding for an athletic fields, and who made a political contribution that certainly didn't help or hurt us in getting our forthcoming hospital. If this project, like previous project plans, is denied, the next owner of this land will be using attorneys, not architects, to design it, and we will not like the results. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Mary Harris.
Hi, good evening again. I'm Mary Harris. I live at 329 Grace Street. It seems that I've been talking for a lifetime, even though it's only been 2 years, about this project and its effect on downtown. And every time I share my concerns and others share theirs, there is little discussion by our council to address these issues. As you know, I am a teacher. However, prior to choosing to teach, I had a 25-plus business career in the technology field at 3 Fortune 500 companies and in higher education as the Director of Development at the College of William and Mary's Business School. I am drawing on this background when considering the plans for the Grange. I have discussed traffic as it worsens each day. I have discussed the town's character, quality of life, lack of infrastructure, lack of school facilities, and public services to match what is coming. I have discussed the increasing noise and air quality concerns as our vehicular traffic congestion increases. I've talked about the need for a business plan for the market or any business investment by the town to ensure that it is a self-funding and not a burden on taxpayers. I have pointed out the inconsistencies of this development with our comprehensive plan. The one that pains my heart the most is the need to preserve the history of Pierceville for our future generations. All these items need to be addressed prior to any approval or any rezoning of the Pierceville property. My background is not only business, but it is also education. As a second career, I chose to teach and taught here in Isle of Wight County schools. I am deeply concerned about overwhelming our schools as we grow so quickly. We have a shortage of teachers today all over Virginia. The pipeline from which to hire teachers is smaller than ever. It is so severe that Hampton City Schools is hiring associate teachers, which is a teacher with a 2-year degree, to fill their classrooms. And we are allowing substitutes in our classrooms that have no college, coursework, or a degree. The quality of our school system has a great impact on all that we do. Residents want a quality educational system for their children and grandchildren. Businesses want a good educational system to support their employment needs. We need to slow down and pause and seriously look at this issue. I have heard and personally felt over the course of the last 2 years that any downtown residents' comments, mine included, are discounted as NIMBY, not in my backyard. But who is better positioned, as I said earlier, to tell you what's going on downtown than the residents that live there? We have the biggest vested interest in the success of this town. No one is saying don't grow and change. I, as well as many others, have made suggestions for the Grange, such as zoning each area for its purpose, as opposed to a blanket PMUD. This would allow the town to say what goes where and to really ensure that this area grows appropriately. It seems a reasonable compromise. And how the right kind of development in this location could really enhance walkability. If you haven't spent time investigating what could go here, we are not ready to move forward. That means you, the council. I have visited the Williamsburg Farmers Market, which is an outdoor and highly successful market. I have driven through City Center to look at the brick apartments with parking behind and tree-lined streets, much more like the feel of Charleston than what we are considering. I have spent years visiting Charleston since my son went to college there and lives there now. If we continue on our present course, it will not be long before we will no longer be able to call ourselves a small town with the charm of a historic area. So what do we have to lose by slowing down, investigating, answering questions, addressing problems that we know will occur, and most importantly, listening to the citizens? I think that you think you have slowed down, but I will leave you with this. Where are the answers to the questions and the mitigations to address the concerns that have been presented? Again, if you haven't spent time investigating what could go here, we are not ready to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Darren Cutler.
For short people.
I know how you feel.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Town Council members. I'm Darren Cutler. I'm a proud resident of 102 Commerce Street. I wasn't born in Smithfield, Virginia, but I'm not ignorant of small town politics. I was born and raised in the quaint town of Mount Airy, North Carolina. Some of you may be more familiar with it as Mayberry. It's the birthplace of Andy Griffith and designed the show after that. I'm sure you've noticed my country accent's a little different than yours. As a military officer, I went on to live in other historic areas of the country: Ocean Beach, California, New London, Connecticut, beautifully well-preserved Charleston, South Carolina, and like Mount Airy, All have avoided suburban cookie cutter blight, such as the Grange in their historic districts. I purchased my home here, originally built by Joe Luter III, at the base of historic Wharf Hill for my retirement after 24 years of service, in a town much like where I grew up. A quaint walkable main street, low traffic, low density, and friendly small town folks like me. I would like to mention Windsor Castle Park, as I was walking my dog there recently and noted on the sign that the purchase of land for the creation of this park was made possible through generous contributions of Mr. Joseph Luter III. The website goes on to say the park became a reality as a result of the vision of Mr. Luter. The nature of his business required a considerable amount of travel across the country, and he had seen way too many cities and towns consumed by development and urban sprawl. It was the opportunities lost forever of far too many communities to set aside land for recreational use that led Mr. Luter to consider purchasing the property in his beloved hometown for park development. Through those donations, a total of $7.2 million, he prevented it from being what the Grange sets out to be, a blemish of cookie-cutter homes and apartments in our historic district. I would like to thank Joe Luter III for his benevolence, which is what makes it so strikingly different than the objectives being proposed for the Grange. The application for special use permits, including the height waiver, and the other 5 special use permits, which would allow multifamily housing, waive yard setback requirements, allow short-term rentals, waive parking and loitering requirements, and most importantly, waive the town's 12 unit per acre maximum density for multifamily homes to 23.6 units per acre, nearly double that permitted by this town government. All in a greedy effort to squeeze as many possible units into this small plot of land. These waivers were approved by the Planning Commission, a body which should be upholding this town's guidance to maintain the historical integrity, not waiving them with a rubber stamp. Additionally, the project has seemingly some direct business engagement prior to approval with a town council member, a move that gives at least the perception of influence, however seemingly indirect, since he abstains from voting but not from presence in the meetings themselves. Now, I had an understanding of this lovely town when I purchased here, but as I communicated with friends and colleagues following my purchase, I was amazed at the number of people that I lived and worked around in Norfolk and in Portsmouth Naval Hospital that love coming to Smithfield from Virginia Beach, Newport News, Chesapeake, and other areas of suburbia that said they love visiting here as it's an escape from the urban plight in which they reside. And they come here and spend money due to the small town charm and pleasant community and shops. This may decline if we develop in the historic district. So I urge this council as a tax-paying and voting citizen to vote against this development as it stands on the grounds that it does not adhere to the standards that the town government has set forth to provide requirements for building in the historic district.
1 minute.
I cannot really see how anyone could see this housing density and design benefiting this town's historic district with such waivers. If you do, you may not live in the historic district. Why would we create standards such as those just voted on for pawn shops and recreational products if we will not uphold the standards that the council sets? You, the elected members, can stand your ground for the residents of this town and stop the project. It's overly dense with traffic and housing, unsightly, unnecessary, with the cost that is unaffordable to most citizens, most of those entry-level employees of Smithfield Foods, hospital nurses. It's devoid of affordable housing, as Vice Mayor Butler previously pointed out, and will be an unpopular blemish on our town's historic district. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Ellen Biebermeyer.
Good evening, all. My name is Mary Ellen Biebermeyer, 355 Grace Street. I'm also here, obviously, to talk about the Grange project. I wish I could say I was excited about the new plan, but unfortunately, there's not really anything new here. All they did was lop off the 4th floor of the apartment buildings. That's not that much new. It's still the same density problems, still the same traffic problems, and there's still not enough parking for the downtown area. waiver this, waiver that. We're wavering everything. Why do we have standards if all we're doing is asking for waivers and the waivers are approved? I'm asking you now to approve the waivers. We still also have the back of the hotel facing Main Street. That is not welcoming in any way, shape, or form. It's not welcoming to the downtown, and it's not welcoming to the members of Main Street Baptist Church. We are literally and figuratively turning our backs on the church. I don't think that's right. When we talk about walkability, there aren't very many things to walk to. I agree with our previous speakers. I guess if you have that many people that are going to walk to Smithfield Foods, I don't see it happening. There are too many apartment buildings there. If you want to have one or two, okay, I could go along with that. I don't have a problem with this area being developed, but not this dense. No way. If you want some apartment buildings, put them in the back. I don't care how fancy you make them, they're not attractive. They don't fit into the downtown area. The hotel should not be, the back of the hotel should not be on Main Street. It should be, the back of the hotel should be parallel to Route 10. These are common sense solutions that many of us can get on board with, but no one, even though we keep offering suggestions, no one is listening. We're asking you to listen and not vote on this until we're heard, until some of our thoughts are given consideration. I think we all have good ideas. I also have not heard anything on proffers either. We need to talk about that now. Now's the time. We need to have, I'm going to talk about the entrances now. Right now, this development has 4 or 5 entrances, one on Main, one on 10, one on Grace, one on Cary, wherever else. I don't know why a development of this size needs that many entrances unless we're planning on dumping all these cars into the downtown area. Of the other developments we have in Smithfield, the vast majority of them only have one entrance in and out, not multiple ones in multiple areas. Cypress Creek has one main entrance. Waterford Oaks, across from Kroger, has one main entrance. Smithfield Boulevard, there were several developments on there, one entrance. Wellington Estates, Gatling Point North, Gatling Point South, they all have just one entrance. Even Mallory Farm and Mallory Point, whatever it's called, really only has one main entrance. I don't know why we have to have any entrances onto Grace Street and Cary Street. Have one on Main Street and one on the bypass. That's it.
1 minute.
You have a commercial area in the front. They can enter off of Main Street. We still haven't talked about the flyover or any exit ramps for the cars going to Mill Swamp. This seems like the time to do that. It doesn't seem like a hard thing to do. A simple exit ramp, there's already a bridge there. Now is the time to do that. When else would we do it? We're not gonna, once this is developed, then that's all she wrote. So for this reason, we need to say no to this development as it currently stands. I am in favor of doing something here, and I know something will be done here. But we need to come up with some different ideas, and we need to get rid of the density.
Your time has expired.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Biebermeyer. Howard Cromwell.
Howard Cromwell, Smithfield, Virginia. I had some comments about the Grange until I listened to each of the previous speakers. Each of them covered everything that they could cover in a short period of time. But they need more time. They need this council not to vote for the Grange tonight. They need this council to listen to what they have to say and they need to work with those people, listen to what they want, come to some commonality. Otherwise, if the council approves what they want to approve, like they said, it's going to be an eyesore, it's going to be a blight on the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cromwell. Bob Hines?
Well, Bob Hines, 216 Washington. Believe it or not, I haven't talked to any of these people in a couple of weeks, but Mr. Luter refers to amenities. Amenities has been thrown out kind of a loose term. Basically, what's at the Grange is somewhere to live. Now, if amenities are part of like luxury apartments, okay. But as far as downtown amenities, like Mr. Harris said, Smithfield's a tourist town now. Some of you have been here as long as I have. I've been downtown since '86, some of you longer. But when I moved here into downtown, that is, I was in the county 7 years before that. Downtown was pretty much a dump, but there were amenities. It's a print shop, drugstore, department store, gas stations, and before that even, movie theater, grocery store. It's like Bill said, you still got to get in your car and go somewhere. It's not there. It's not going to be there. We've gotten kind of like Occoquan. If you've ever been to Occoquan, man, that's a big area, big tourist thing. I think a couple of blocks off the river is not residential anymore. It's tourist businesses, shops, this type thing. Then you get to the residential area. Ms. Lanier talked about the parking. Yes, it's going to be a problem. I've suggested that maybe the spot by the YMCA that Mr. Luter's sitting on right now, maybe for sale, I think, town could buy it back and make it a parking lot. That would help some. I'm not opposed to houses going there. It doesn't bother me. Number one, that is. That's not a problem. But I'm just thinking about parking, too. Where are people going to park? You're going to wind up having to put people over at Windsor Castle and run school buses because as events get bigger and bigger and bigger, and a lot of places have this happen. If they start having an event, might start out small, a little bigger, a little bigger, a little bigger. As years go by, it gets real popular and it gets big. I used to go to Oyster Roast out there at the old Kirk Lumber property. A Ruritan club over there did it. 1,000 people. All they had was oysters, beer, and iced tea and crackers and soup. That was it. But it sells out every year. 1,000 people. Tables all over the place. Conditions can be put on things, too. Ms. Biebermeyer talked about the overpass. I've mentioned that before. I discussed that with Mr. Luter the other night, talked like he looked at it. That's a requirement could be put on there, and then these other entrances are not needed. Cypress Creek, as I've said before, the builder paid for that. That would solve a lot of problem. My wife and I were up in Williamsburg over the weekend, and we were at that area off Monticello that's mixed use, I guess you'd call it. Trader Joe's, Outback, and all that there. My wife commented, it's the 2-story apartments. She said, these are nice. Actually, that would be okay over there. Of course, we're way past talking about 2 stories and not 3 stories, but what was up there really did look nice. They might consider taking a drive up there and looking at it. One other caveat here. Mr. Luter said be no public money for private stuff. Well, my understanding is over at the corner of Washington and James, all that was done over there that he did pay for. They tore up the sidewalk, made a bigger storm drain, and I've understood from Mr. Stallings that all that was paid for by the developer. I'm concerned, though, that if...
1 minute.
Thank you. If utilities are upgraded, storm sewer needs to be bigger, power needs to be bigger, might say, well, that's for public. It's improving the public. Well, right now, if it doesn't need improving, don't have it, say, upgraded and say, well, town's got to pay for part of that. Even though the only reason it was upgraded bigger and better was because of the development. I hope you just keep an eye on that, please. I guess that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hines. Mr. Lanford Pritchett?
I was going to say good evening, but for the December meeting, I have to say season's greetings, and I'm glad to see some red ties in the audience here. I had to rise to the occasion myself, okay?
We all got the order.
Yeah, good. I just want you to know, I love this town. I've been coming here 70 years. I've only retired here for the last 6 or 7, all right? You've heard it before. I've told my kids, if something's going on in their hood that they don't care about and they don't raise their hand, they have to live with what is handed down. If they speak, or if they don't speak, they don't have a choice. So you get to see me tonight. I moved 2,000 miles here to retire here after living in Sydney, London, and I'm an 8th-generation Virginian, okay? This is my hood. Los Angeles, San Francisco, Denver, D.C. I moved 2,000 miles to be here. This project is not supporting the reason I came here, and I'm going to quantify that for you. It's the traffic. That's the part that I don't care about. The Grange will change the why. I moved here, and I'm just one guy, but I think there's a lot of us that feel this way. And I'm going to quantify that in a minute, too. And as far as I'm concerned, you get rid of the housing in this project, the rest of it's okay. Keep the hotel, keep the commercial, just get rid of the single family and the multifamily. That's what's creating 5,000 trips a day at that corner. That's going to affect every one of us. And, oh, by the way, I don't know, another part and parcel of that is I just saw these for the first time tonight, 10-foot and 15-foot setbacks. I don't know why you would accept those. I've mentioned before, the reason I'm here is small town charm. That's what I like about this hood. I've also mentioned before a couple of other things, and one of them, and it hurts me to say this, quite frankly, is that money is not everything. And I want to give you something to think about on the money side of it. As a retired architect, when I was a kid living in Colorado, practicing, there was a suburb named Boulder, town of about 100,000 people. You can look this up yourself. They put everybody wanted to be in Boulder. Everybody wanted to go there. The town of Boulder, the citizens of Boulder didn't want it to happen. And they got the council members to be able to represent their interests. And they put up tall walls. The net result of that was that everybody wanted to be in Boulder, and the house values went up so much that the property taxes did as well. And the property taxes took care of the teachers, the schools, the infrastructure, the crime that would come with higher density living. One other thing I wanted to mention, I'm sure everybody here is aware of it. In my lifetime, I've never seen a vote with an absentee ballot getting more than 2%. I want to leave you with that thought. Okay?
1 minute remaining.
Our grandchildren and I will thank you for limiting this density. Good night.
Thank you. Martha Russ. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm Martha Russ, and I reside at 504 Cradford Road. Honorable ladies and gentlemen of council, I'm here tonight to ask you to approve the Grange project as presented by Mr. Luter and his team. But first, we really need to have a 7th inning stretch. This is a long time to sit, especially for old people. So you might want to think about that in the future. You've heard on many occasions from the vocal minority. Well, tonight, you've also heard from some of the silent majority. From the minority that opposes this project, there's been no offer of compromise, while Mr. Luter and his team have offered revisions to building height, density, and traffic flow. Talking has been going on for too long, and it is now time to act. You must make a decision tonight that will help ensure that Smithfield is not only a good place for us to live, but for our children and grandchildren as well. I'd like to ask those of us who are here tonight in favor of the Grange to please stand. Honorable council members, there's your answer. The silent majority of Smithfield citizens want you to approve the Grange now. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mark Gay. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Mark Gay, 110 Goose Hill Way. The late Albert Einstein is attributed to the quotation that the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again while achieving the same result. And yet these good citizens of the town are here tonight, many of them. They've been here many nights over the last 2 years on this topic. They're not insane. They're certainly highly educated, well-traveled, competent across many fields of professional endeavor. We're not NIMBYs. We're not NIMBYs. What we continue to seek and to demand is competent local governance that is impartial, that listens and adjudicates fairly based upon factual evidence, and that genuinely seeks to do the right thing on behalf of its citizens. We appreciate that you do not always get it right, but that's no excuse for not having tried. Several of these people tonight were among the 13 who spoke in detail, again, factual detail, at Planning Commission 2 weeks ago. As well you know, their comments were met and ignored wholly with stonewall resistance. Social media has been very in hyperdrive these past several days about the Grange, and you obviously have folks monitoring those comments very closely, so you know what the issues are, and there's been a great detail of communication about it. At the end of the day, you're going to do what you're going to do. What I asked you the last time I stood before you is that you take the time to do the analytics that underlie the Luter proposal. I submit that still has not been accomplished to a standard of excellence, and that's what I think all of us here tonight expect from a community of excellence. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have Melissa Venable. Ms. Venable, are you going to speak on behalf, or are you speaking as an individual? Are you speaking on behalf of the developer? I am speaking on behalf of the developer, yes. All right. Before we do that, Mr. Stallings received a petition this afternoon. I'd like for him to read the petition before you wrap up as far as the rebuttal is concerned.
Yes, sir. We received this in the town manager's office today. It's a petition, and I'll read it. Esteemed town leaders, I am writing to you concerning Joe Luter's project Grange at 10 Main. As a small business owner on Main Street, a resident of Smithfield, and a former town council member that has a working knowledge of the developer and the town, I was very much in favor of moving forward with this project. Growth in a small town is inevitable, and council should have embraced the opportunity to work with a known developer who has over and over produced high-quality projects and who has proven his love for the town. Windsor Castle Park, Clont's Boat Ramp, Smithfield Little Theater, the public restrooms on Main Street, Luter Sports Complex, Luter YMCA, and the Main Street Beautification Project are all examples of his work and have served to greatly benefit the residents of Smithfield. As with any proposed development, this project elicited a broad range of opinions. The majority of those whom you have heard from were not in favor of your proceeding with this development. I wholeheartedly felt that there was a large contingent of Smithfield residents who supported this project but chose not to speak out. Many have told me that the anger and vitriol that was often displayed from these public comments kept them from publicly expressing their opinion. Quite honestly, during the application process, I did not wish to voice my support because of fear of retribution from some of those speaking so fervently against it. In today's cancel culture, the possibility of negative actions towards my small business was too great of a risk. As another small business member in town told me, I never know who has strong opinions that can ultimately influence the livelihoods of myself and my employees. Your job as council members is not an easy one. It is an often underappreciated role, and you are put in the unfortunate position of making some very difficult decisions. Although maybe this letter should have been written sooner, I, and all those who have signed it, believe that the Grange at 10 Main would be the best use of this real estate. And this was from former Councilman Milton Cook, and it was signed by approximately 40 people.
Enter that in the record.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Venable, thank you.
Yes, sir, thank you.
State
Thank
your
you,
name,
Council.
please. Who
Yes,
you represent?
Melissa Venable, 5857 Harborview Boulevard in Suffolk. With all due respect, with our last council hearing, I wasn't sure how this was going to play out, so I wanted to make sure to sign up and address some of the comments that we heard tonight specifically, and I'll try to be very brief.
You have 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Yes,
Our first meetings, which were public meetings at the Baptist Church, Mr. Lanier, we did speak, and we had a different plan up front along Main Street. We actually were looking at moving the Schoolhouse Museum, and we sat down after that meeting and talked about the huge concern with the Schoolhouse Museum being adjacent to the pond and not across the street from the pond, having a retail building close by that may have some facilities in it for the worker or the person that would be curating at the Schoolhouse Museum. So we made plans to make changes there. Then subsequently, we've changed the pond to be sure it was more like a park-like setting with fencing and landscaping around it and seating areas, but we're sure to have not only landscaping that would prevent people from going into the pond area, but also a fence around it. I'd love to stand up here today and tell you that's going to be a dry pond, but you currently have a water problem that comes off this site and off the roadway that enters onto Main Street. So I don't want to sit here and promise a dry pond, knowing that it's very well will need to be a wet pond there. But again, we want to put safety measures in place to be sure that we won't have any issues along Main Street. And we believe that a pond, a water feature, can be very pretty at the front of this site, and we're going to take great measures to make sure that it is a pretty amenity there. But again, we are going to look as we engineer the site. Right now we are in rezoning, and I think we forget that we still have a long process to go through with rezoning. With engineering, I apologize, but as we engineer the site, we'll know better. 2024 regulations for stormwater management haven't even been released yet, so we don't know what higher standards we're going to be held to. So I can't make any promises about that pond, but I would love to be able to work with Mr. Lanier further and help us both get to a place where we're more comfortable. We haven't ignored him. We have tried our best to not stand here and tell you something that can't be, but also try to make sure we're taking into account the safety measures. Further, I heard retail, pizza parlor, places for kids to gather, daycare. We hope to God those things want to be here when we're ready to receive them. But again, we're in the middle of a rezoning. Walkability, people have said this isn't walkable. We have a village green in the center of the site, a farmer's market that we believe people will walk to, and we have residential housing where we hope, because of the sidewalks and the pedestrian connectivity that we're planning, they'll be walking downtown to the shops that are in place. We also have restaurants, retail spaces, office spaces here. So it's all walkable. So I hate to hear that people don't see these things because we have this village green and these spaces that we've been planning for nearly 2 years now, where we are looking at a walkable community that offers more than just residential housing. The hotel is facing Main Street. You all know that, but I want to make sure that's stated and it's clear. The face of the hotel is to Main Street. The parking and drop-off is at the rear of the building. Both sides are going to be unique and beautiful and have high architectural standards, and you will help us get us there because we will come to Bihar with that building designed. Further, just under 800 parking spots are being provided on this site. Just under 800 parking spots are being provided on this site. There's a lot of parking that comes along with cost with that parking. I didn't want that to be ignored. I think that's it. The Ruritan Oyster Roast.
Whatever time's left, if you want to come, hustle up.
Yes, absolutely.
1 minute.
Two final comments. I think Melissa summarized some of what was said, but with respect to setbacks, the setbacks we're requesting in this plan are consistent with what's already downtown. So I think that's important to note. Second to note is that the zoning on this property allows up to 8 units per acre, and we're seeking 7 in total. So we are not looking to optimize density, and I think that's something you all should know. Thank you.
Thank you. That closes the sign-up that I have for public hearing, and I think Ms. Russ is likely accurate. The council can use about a 10-minute break. So what we'll do is we will be in recess for 10 minutes. Amy, can you open that side door for council to utilize and direct them? And we will reconvene at just a little bit after 8:45, 8:50. We'll be right back. We will now reconvene the December 5th, 2023 meeting of the Smithfield Town Council. We'll close the public hearing, and the items now before council are the special use permits. What we will do, unless there's objection by council, is we will have Ms. Clary explain one by one the special use permits. We can discuss them, then council can act upon them one by one. So,
Mr. Mayor?
yes, sir.
Actually, there are a series of special use permits, but the first two items are the rezoning.
I'm sorry.
And then the
Correct.
amendment to the future land use.
Correct. Sorry, I was anyway, Ms. Clary, if you would.
Yes, the first item would be the rezoning, which is the conditional official zoning map amendment with the proffered conditions. This would be to rezone the property into the planned mixed-use district.
Matters before council for discussion.
I do have a question about the advertising of the special use permits. This last advertisement that came out in the paper was just for the amended application. There were no special use permits listed in the paper for that. By law, is that not correct that we have to do that? We're required to do that by state law?
We had already advertised for the special use permits and had the public hearing for each of the 6 special use permit items.
And with the significant amended application that has been done, that still falls under those special use permits?
Correct. The applicant is still requesting the original special use permits. For example, the special use permit, first one for the multifamily residential dwelling for the 212 apartments, staff would suggest that if council does approve, they provide the condition that it would be not more than 180 units as presented in conformance with the general development plan.
The setbacks, wouldn't that change if you change the number of units?
The setbacks have not changed.
That wasn't my question. My question was, wouldn't the setbacks change if you had fewer units?
No, the buildings are still being proposed in the original location.
I guess I'm really missing this. If you take some of the apples out of the bag, you've got more space. So where does the setbacks, looks like to me you could go right back with the number that you proposed the first time.
Now, the setbacks, Mr. Smith, apply to each individual unit. Doesn't matter, you could have 100 or 50 and the setbacks are the same with respect to the different housing.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that it should have improved the situation with the setbacks if we have less density.
So the density amount did change. It did lower the amount of density. For that special use permit item 2, the special use permit item is for a waiver of maximum density. This is for 27.5 multifamily and an overall of 7.9. Staff would suggest that if approval is granted, it would be contingent on the overall density at 7 units per developer acre and the 23.6 for the multifamily as presented with the updated general development plan.
So we didn't have to advertise the special use permits.
Because it's, Mr. Smith, it's because it's, what's being asked for is lower. When you advertise for the highest, but you can't exceed what's been advertised, but you can go lower. Because it's less than what has been given notice for the public hearing.
You know, the only thing I had a problem with was the fact that we had, I think it was in the paper, the first time was back in July, end of July, that we also listed the application and the special use permits. This time in the next notice in November the 22nd, the only thing that was advertised was the amended application and no special use permits.
Because the special use permits have not changed. The application for rezoning changed because they proffer a different layout and different proffered conditions. That's That's what changed, but the special use permits did not change. And you've already held public hearings on all those.
I'm just bringing up a point that,
No, it's
of clarity.
It's a
Not
valid
just
point.
for me, but for the public too, to understand that, so.
Okay, so we're discussing now the conditional zoning map amendment rezoning, correct? That's the first item.
Yes, a rezoning conditional official zoning map amendment with the proffered conditions to the PMUD zoning district.
Matters before council for discussion, action, whatever you decide. I guess, anybody have comments or?
Mayor Bowman, this is Renee.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Roundtree?
I'd like to move for conditional official zoning map, the amendment for approval.
Motion made by Ms. Roundtree. Is there a second?
Is, Ms. Roundtree, is that with the conditions and with the staff recommendations?
Yes, sir. Do you need me to read the whole thing?
If the motion needs to state, if that's what you're making, is a motion to approve it with the proffered conditions and staff recommendations.
So I'd like to move to approve the conditional official zoning map amendment for rezoning to approve the PMUD, right? So to classify single-family attached dwellings, duplex residential, mix of residential dwelling types, community buildings, swimming pools, quasi-public park, fields, and related facilities, eating establishments, hotels, offices, and retail sales under the planned mixed-use development district.
With proffered conditions and staff recommendations.
Yes, sir.
Is there a second to the motion?
I second the motion.
Motion made by Ms. Roundtree, seconded by Vice Mayor Butler. Discussion on the matter.
Mayor, I'd like to make a substitute motion to table this project for 60 days for the following reasons. In the same spirit of postponing the budget hearing so that our 2 new council members can participate in those discussions, this project is as important, if not more so, than the budget/property tax rates. 2, with only 5 people voting tonight, 3 people constitute a majority, which I don't think is fair to the citizens of this town, given the magnitude of its impact. And lastly, if the density was reduced by roughly 10 to 12%, why haven't the other special use requests changed as well, such as height, parking, loading, setbacks, maximum density? Along with many others, don't believe this fruit is ripe for picking just yet, but we're getting closer and we can make it better.
Is there a second on the substitute motion?
I second that.
Motion made, second. Call the question.
This is a question on the.
On the substitute motion to delay. Correct.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mrs. Roundtree?
No.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Butler?
No.
Mr. Pack?
Abstain.
Mayor Bowman?
No. We're back to the original motion. Further comment, question? Call the question, please.
Mr. Smith?
Nay.
Ms. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
No.
Vice Mayor Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Pack?
Abstain.
Mayor Bowman?
Yes. Next item is the comprehensive plan amendment, future land use map amendment. Ms. Clary?
Yes, this is a future land use map amendment for the comprehensive plan to be for the parcels to be categorized as commercial mixed use.
Matters before council for action, discussion.
Mayor Bowman, I'd like to move comprehensive plan amendment, the future land use map amendment.
Any clarification needed from that, Mr. Riddick?
No.
Is there a second to the motion?
I second the motion.
Motion made by Ms. Roundtree, seconded by Vice Mayor Butler. Further discussion.
I again would like to submit a substitute motion to table this project for 60 days for the reasons I've already outlined.
Substitute motion made by Mr. Brooks to table for 60 days. Is there a second to the motion?
Aye.
Seconded by Mr. Smith. Call the question.
Mrs. Roundtree?
No.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Butler?
No.
Mr. Pack?
Abstain.
Mayor Bowman?
No. So we're back to the original motion.
Yes, yes, sir.
Call the question.
Mr. Smith?
Nay.
Mrs. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
No.
Vice Mayor Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Pack?
Abstain.
Mayor Bowman?
Yes. Next item is the special use, number 1, special use permit multifamily residential dwelling.
Yes, this is a special use permit for multifamily residential dwellings for 212 apartments. Town staff do suggest that if it is approved, it would be contingent on not more than 180